What is up, guys? Pastor Matheny here, and thank you for joining me today in my study. So today we're continuing our series on Psalm 119. Today we're considering the section dedicated to the Hebrew letter Vav, which is verses 41 through 48 of the 119th Psalm. This section reads like this. Let your steadfast love come to me, O Lord, your salvation according to your promise. Then shall I have an answer for him who taunts me, for I trust in your word. And take not the word of truth utterly out of my mouth, for my hope is in your rules. I will keep your law continually, forever and ever. And I shall walk in a wide place, for I have sought your precepts. I will also speak of your testimonies before kings, and shall not be put to shame. For I find my delight in your commandments, which I love. I will lift up my hands toward your commandments, which I love, and I will meditate on your statutes. So once again, this is the psalmist extolling the virtues of God in his word. Let your steadfast love come to me, O Lord, your salvation according to your promise. In God's word, of course, it is full of God's promises of faithfulness and love and steadfastness towards his people. And so the psalmist is just meditating on this. Your steadfast love comes to me, O Lord, because you have promised it to me in your word. Then shall I have an answer for him who taunts me, for I trust in your word. How can we as Christians respond to our detractors today? How is it that we can tolerate and put up with and give answer to people who would taunt us, who would mock us as foolish, as unknowing, as wasteful, as hypocritical, only by giving answer according to God in his word? And the miraculous, amazing thing about answering according to God's word, as opposed to according to philosophy or reason or something like that, is that regardless of whether or not those who taunt us come around to our side of the disagreement, we ourselves are strengthened by receiving God's law and his promises from him in his word. And so this is, of course, the tactic that we ought to take most often. And take not the word of truth utterly out of my mouth, for my hope is in your rules. This is a prayer to the Lord that he would not remove the gift of his word from our mouths, that he would allow us to read and to speak and to meditate on his word, because that is the source of our hope, knowing what God has said and therefore what God has done and is doing in the world. This is our hope over the course of our lives. I will keep your law continually forever and ever, and I shall walk in a wide place, for I have sought your precepts. God's law, his word, is precious to us, and therefore we guard and keep it continually, at all times. We treasure it up and keep it because we know it's our source of hope and life. And given that we have the gift of his word, we walk, the psalmist says, in a wide place. We walk in a field where we can see where it is that we are going and where we ought to head to. We're not walking on some narrow sort of balance beam where we might stumble and fall into danger, but because we have God's word, because we have that great gift, we can walk confidently and securely. I will speak of your testimonies before kings and shall not be put to shame. For I find my delight in your commandments, which I love. We can speak to people confidently, even people who are in authority over us. We can speak to kings. We can give testimony to princes. We can speak to people that might be considered higher to us in our society. Because when we speak on account of God's church by his word, we don't speak on our own credibility, but we speak with the credibility and the faithfulness and the goodness of the God who gave us that word. And so we don't need to fear that what we say might be foolish or might be uneducated or anything like that, because what we speak is from God himself. And we know that when we speak according to God's word, we will not be put to shame. Even if our detractors think little of us, ultimately we will be glorified for speaking God's word to those around us. For I delight in your commandments, which I love. God's word is our joy as Christians. We know what a great gift it is. And so we not only love his word, but we take delight in what it is that God says. I will lift up my hands toward your commandments, which I love, and I will meditate on your statutes. Just a statement again from the psalmist about how important God's word is to him and how important it is to us. We know that our life and our health and our faith comes from God's word, and so we delight in the treasure that it is. So I hope that this brief meditation on a little piece of Psalm 119 has delighted your heart today, has shown you what a great gift God's word is, as it has done for me. And so I hope to see you all again soon in my study. Peace.